She said, "You're so lucky to have met my friends. Because you're not on their level. Just pay and leave." I replied, "You're right." They all laughed while I quietly walked away. A week later, her once smug smile vanished instantly when she found out I had become the boss of her friends. She looked at me, her tone dripping with mockery. "You're lucky you even got to meet my friends, Evan. They're way out of your league. Just pay and go, okay?" Her words stung, not because they were true, but because she said them so casually, as if I was just disposable. Her friends burst out laughing, tossing looks at each other like it was the funniest thing in the world. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just looked at her, at the woman I thought I'd build a future with, and said quietly, "You're right." Then I stood up, paid my share, and walked out of that rooftop restaurant without another word. Behind me, the laughter faded into the city noise, and for the first time in a long time, I felt calm. There's a certain peace that comes when you stop trying to prove yourself to people who'll never see your worth. I thought that was the end of it. Until 1 week later, I walked into a conference room at work and saw 3 very familiar faces, hers included. And this time they were the ones who couldn't afford to speak. I've never been the flashy type. No designer watches, no luxury vacations, no need to prove anything to anyone. I'm the kind of guy who shows up early, gets his work done, and lets results speak louder than words. Lila used to say that's what she liked about me, that I was grounded. When we first met, she called me refreshing, said she was tired of the arrogant startup guys who only talked about money and metrics. I believed her. We met at a mutual friend's birthday dinner. She was all energy, bold, confident, magnetic. I was quiet. Maybe too quiet for her world, but she seemed drawn to that at first. I remember her saying, "You make me feel calm. Everyone else makes me feel like I'm competing." Back then, I didn't realize she thrived on competition. That it wasn't calm she wanted. It was control. Over the months, little things began to change. At first, it was subtle. She'd tease my clothes, saying I dressed too safe. Then it became comments about my car. "You're not still driving that old Civic, are you?" I'd laugh it off, but every time something in her tone felt sharper. Then came the social comparisons. Her world was fast-paced, full of creatives, influencers, people with big titles and bigger egos. Whenever we hung out with them, I felt like the invisible one at the table, the quiet boyfriend who didn't fit the aesthetic. And Lila started noticing too. One night after an event, she said, "You should try being more social. My friends think you're kind of distant." "I just don't talk about things I don't care about," I replied. "That's the problem," she sighed. "You act like you're better than everyone." That hit me. Not because it was true, but because it was the first time she twisted my silence into arrogance. Still, I stayed. Maybe I thought love was about patience, about accepting each other's flaws. But looking back now, I realize she didn't want a partner. She wanted a prop, someone who made her look balanced, down to earth, while she climbed her imaginary social ladder. The tension reached its peak when she started talking about her circle. "Evan, you should come to dinner with my friends next week," she said one evening, curling up on my couch. "They're all super successful. I want you to meet them." "Sure," I said. "What's the occasion?" "Nothing special," she smiled. "Just, I want them to see who I'm dating." At the time, I took it as a compliment. Now I know better. I was being presented. She spent the whole week hyping up the dinner, talking about how the restaurant was exclusive, how her friends were power players in the creative scene. She picked my outfit herself, saying, "Let me help you look a little sharper." They're kind of image conscious, I let her, because I thought it mattered to her that I made a good impression. The night came. We walked into this rooftop restaurant downtown, the kind of place where the view costs more than the food. Her friends were already there, laughing, drinking expensive wine like they were in a commercial. They greeted Lila with hugs and squeals. When she introduced me, they all smiled, the kind of smiles that stop at the lips, not the eyes. One of them, Jasmine, gave me a quick once-over and said, "So this is the famous Evan. You look reliable." The table chuckled. Lila just smiled like she didn't notice the tone. I told myself not to take it personally. I was there for her, not for their approval. Dinner went on. Stories about brand deals, Bali trips, six-figure sponsorships. Every time I tried to contribute, the conversation moved right past me. At one point, I caught Lila glancing at me, almost embarrassed. like she'd brought the wrong accessory to a party. That's when I knew this wasn't about love anymore. It was about image. And that image was starting to crack, but I stayed polite, quiet, calm, because sometimes silence says everything you need to say. And that silence? It was about to become the loudest thing in the room. The night had started awkwardly but tolerable. By the second bottle of wine, it became something else entirely. Jasmine, the one who'd called me reliable, started leading the conversation, the self-proclaimed queen of the table. She was telling some story about a failed Tinder date who showed up in a budget car, and everyone laughed. Then, like a bad script, her eyes drifted toward me. Lila, at least you didn't have to go through that, right? I mean, Evan seems practical. What do you drive again? I smiled faintly. A Honda Civic. The table went quiet. Then Jasmine burst out laughing. Oh my God, I had one of those in college. Another friend chimed in, same. Before I could afford real cars. The laughter spread, light and cruel. Lila forced a laugh too, though hers was strained. I noticed. Hands that hurt more than anything they said. I just sipped my water, pretending it didn't bother me. But Jasmine wasn't done. Evan, you must save a ton, huh? Like, you're one of those smart finance guys who doesn't spend a cent on fun? I met her eyes. I spend on things that matter. Oh, she teased. Like socks and sandwiches? The group erupted again. Lila didn't say a word. She just kept looking at her phone, pretending to scroll. When the laughter died down, I finally said, It's okay. I know my lane. That made them laugh even harder. Dinner carried on and I stayed silent, half present, half somewhere else. I'd gone from being her partner to being the joke of the night. By the time dessert came, I was ready to leave. But the universe wasn't done humiliating me yet. The waiter approached and placed the check neatly at the center of the table. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Lila pushed it slowly toward me. Babe, could you get this? It's kind of awkward to split here. I looked down. $780. The kind of number that made your brain pause. Before I could even reach for my wallet, Chloe, another one of her friends, smirked. Oh, come on, Lila. Don't do that to him. You can tell he's trying. What's that supposed to mean? I asked. Nothing, she said innocently. It's just, this place isn't exactly civic priced. The table howled. Lila didn't stop them. She laughed too. And that's when something in me went still. Cold, detached. I stood up. The laughter faded, curiosity flickering across their faces. I placed my card on the table. I'll cover my part, I said evenly. And you're right. This place isn't for me, Lila frowned. Evan, don't be emotional. We're just kidding. You're right, I said softly. You're just joking. Then I looked at her, really looked at her, and said, You said I'm lucky to meet your friends. Maybe you're right. I just didn't realize luck could feel like this. I signed the receipt and added, Enjoy your night, then I left. No shouting, no scene, just the sound of my footsteps and their laughter fading behind me. Outside, the city was buzzing. Taxis, neon, the low hum of weekend chaos. I stood there for a minute, breathing. It wasn't anger I felt, not even sadness, just clarity. Sometimes it takes a moment of humiliation to remind you who you are and who you'll never be again. I went home, took off the blazer she'd picked out for me, and sat in silence. My phone buzzed with her messages. Babe, where did you go? They were just joking, don't overreact. Come on, Evan, don't ruin the night. I didn't reply, she called. I declined. She called again. I turned off my phone. I didn't know it then, but that was the last night I'd ever feel small because of her, because 1 week later, she'd be the one sitting across from me, quiet, nervous, and praying I didn't remember what she'd said, and believe me, I remembered every word. A week passed. No calls, no texts. Lila had gone silent, maybe realizing that her little performance had ended more than just a dinner. By Friday, I'd buried myself in work. Our company, a fast-growing software firm, had just finalized a merger with a smaller creative agency. The integration was my responsibility. I was scheduled to lead the onboarding meeting with their department heads. I walked into the building that morning feeling lighter. The humiliation from that rooftop night had dulled into something else. Focus. I didn't need to prove myself to anyone. I just needed to show up, do my job, and let the universe handle the rest. When I entered the conference room, I froze. Not because I was nervous, but because sitting across the table were three very familiar faces. Lila, Jasmine, Chloe. For a moment, nobody spoke. The air felt thick, like time itself had stopped to watch. Lila's face drained of color. Jasmine's smile collapsed. Chloe dropped her pen. I blinked once just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. Nope, they were really here. My manager, unaware of the history, gestured toward me. Everyone, this is Evan Miller, our technical operations lead. He'll be overseeing this merger and coordinating across both teams. I straightened my posture, gave a professional nod and said, "Nice to meet all of you. I look forward to working together." My voice didn't tremble. My smile didn't waver. But I saw it, that flicker of recognition in their eyes. They remembered every word from that dinner, and now I was the one sitting at the head of the table. The meeting began. I went through the agenda, project scopes, timelines. Lila kept her head down, taking fake notes. Jasmine pretended to type on her laptop. I could see her screen, Google search, how to request team transfer. At one point, I needed input on a marketing report. It was Jasmine's file. "Jasmine," I said smoothly, "could you walk us through the rationale behind this strategy?" She looked up, startled. Yeah, sure." Her voice trembled. She stumbled over her own slides. I didn't smirk. I didn't interrupt. I just nodded politely, like a teacher listening to a student who hadn't done their homework. When she finished, I said, "Thank you. Let's make sure we align future recommendations with realistic budgets. I'd hate for us to overspend on appearances." I let the word appearances hang there for half a second. She froze. Lila glanced up just once, and I caught her eyes before she quickly looked away. The rest of the meeting went smoothly. At least for me. When it ended, people started filing out. Lila lingered. She waited until the last person left, then approached me slowly. "Evan," she started, voice barely above a whisper, "I didn't know your company was involved in this merger." I closed my laptop. "Neither did I. Life's funny like that. Can we talk?" she asked, twisting her bracelet, the same one she'd worn that night. "About what?" "About that dinner. About everything." I was drunk, they were. I cut her off gently. "You were perfectly sober, Lila, and so were they," she sighed. I didn't mean to embarrass you." "You didn't. You only embarrassed yourself." She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I could see the memory flashing behind her eyes, the laughter, the condescension, the moment I walked away. "Evan, please, can we start over?" "I miss you." "Lila," I said, calm as ever, "this isn't personal. I'm your manager now." "Let's keep it professional." The word manager seemed to hit her like a slap. For the next few days, the tension in the office was almost tangible. They couldn't meet my gaze during meetings. I didn't treat them unfairly. In fact, I treated them too fairly. Polite, distant, efficient. No revenge, no emotion. Just business. But everyone else noticed something. My tone with the rest of the team was warm, collaborative. With them, clipped, neutral. People started whispering. And eventually someone asked me privately, "Hey Evan, do you know them?" I smiled. "We've had dinner before." By the second week, Jasmine requested a department transfer. Chloe followed, and Lila. She stayed silent, probably hoping I'd forget. But one afternoon, HR informed me she'd resigned too. The reason stated on her form, personal incompatibility with management. I laughed when I read that, because she was right again. We were incompatible, just not in the way she thought. After the merger settled, life moved on, at least for me. My days became fuller, my projects bigger. Our integration with the agency turned out to be one of the most successful transitions in the company's history. We hit our targets, won new clients, and the board promoted me to head of technical operations within 2 months. I didn't brag. I didn't post anything about it online, but somehow word got around. In her world, things like that always did. 2 weeks after her resignation, I received a message. The name on my phone screen made me pause for half a second. "Lila, hey, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I know I hurt you and you didn't deserve it." I was immature that night. I let my friends influence me. "You've always been a good man, Evan. I hope you're doing okay." I read it twice. There was a time when I would have answered, when I would have wanted her to understand how much it hurt. But that time was long gone. Still, something in me wanted to close the loop. So I replied, "I'm doing well. You were right, by the way. We really aren't on the same level. I didn't send it to be cruel. It was just true. Then I muted the chat and went back to work. Later that month, our company hosted a Tech Creative Summit, a networking event full of startups, marketing firms, and agencies. As I walked in, shaking hands and exchanging cards, I caught a glimpse of Jasmine across the room. She saw me too, and froze mid-conversation. Her expression was the same one I saw the night of that dinner, half shock, half disbelief. But this time there was something else, respect. She approached hesitantly. "Evan, congratulations. I heard about your promotion." "Thank you," I said simply. She shifted awkwardly. "You must think we're terrible people." "Not terrible," I said. "Just young. Some lessons take longer to learn." She nodded, eyes downcast. "You handled it better than I would have." "You'd be surprised," I said. "Time humbles everyone eventually." That was the last conversation we ever had. After that night, I never saw Lila or her friends again. But sometimes when I drive past that rooftop restaurant, I think about that evening, the laughter, the mockery, the sting, and I smile, not out of spite, but because that night didn't break me. It built me. It taught me that silence can be louder than rage, that dignity always outlasts pride, and that the best revenge will never come from what you say. It'll come from who you become. A few months later, during a company dinner, my CEO pulled me aside. "You've been leading with calm confidence lately," he said. "Whatever you're doing, keep it up. People follow your example." I thanked him, but I didn't explain, because how do you tell someone that your leadership style came from a dinner where you were laughed at? That humiliation had burned something into me. Not bitterness, but clarity. It reminded me of who I am when no one's watching. And now every time I sit at a table full of important people, I remember that night. The laughter. The arrogance. The way they looked down at me. And I smiled to myself. Because they taught me one of the most important lessons I'll ever learn. When someone makes you feel small, don't fight to prove your worth. Just grow so big that they can't see you anymore. I left that dinner quietly. And quietly, I built a life none of them could have imagined. I left that dinner quietly. And quietly, I built a life none of them could have imagined. And for that I honestly thank them, because without that night, I might never have become the man I am today. Thank you for listening.